in the near future, we've got a good update kit coming. We're hoping that that will put us back into a better situation. And what we'd wanted to do was really get the pain of that pit lane start out of the way.
Hello, I'm Olivia, and today I'm joined by Shov, answering all your questions from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix on this week's Akkodis Debrief. Now, Shov, that was a really exciting race, and it just shows you in the last few laps there how unpredictable the sport is. It's that combination of being at the right place at the right time, but also, George, it was a masterclass of racecraft by managing those tires in that second stint. Now, what was the team's reaction to that unexpected podium?
Well, we weren't really popping the champagne and doing cartwheels. We knew that we weren't strong enough to get the podium on merit. The second stint of the race was a lot better for us. The first stint was really the one that let us down. Now, nice to get a podium. Good to see that no one was hurt in that incident. It was quite a scary incident given the straight that it was on and the fact that everyone was still racing around it. But as I said, we know that we've got work to do. We'd rather come away with a P3 than a P5, but had it not been for that, we would have finished P5, and we aspire to do better.
I mean, it just also does come to show how everything is so unpredictable in the sport, and George really managed his tires very well in that second stint to be in that right position for that podium. Now, coming on to the car's performance, there has been a little bit of a pattern where we're performing really well, and then it comes to qualifying, and that performance drops down a little bit. Can you tell us why that is, and specifically, does it have anything to do with the track, how it's evolving, or is it all set up of the car?
Well, the track certainly plays a part in that, but one of the biggest things is just how much time you spend doing low fuel work versus the high fuel work. And on the occasions where we might do just 1 or 2 laps on the soft tyre at low fuel before getting into a long run, we tend to be a bit further down the timesheets. Now, at a track like Baku, the drivers were focused on the fact that qualifying is important. Despite that long straight, it's a really hard place to overtake. So they were wanting to put a bit more effort into the low fuel, and the more laps you do on a low fuel run, the fuel's obviously getting lower and lower, and that means that when you keep pushing, you've got a lighter car and the potential to get a bit further up the timesheet.
And what are, if I can ask, what are the major differences as that track evolves when it comes to the car's performance? Is it that you have to tweak the setup, or is it that you're not able to tweak it enough as the track is evolving?
Well, the grip's coming up through the weekend, and when you get a street circuit where the roads are used for 51 weeks of the year for cars, for trucks, you end up with a very, very dirty track surface. And as the rubber goes down from the racing tyres, it cleans the track, it gets grippier, and you can find that you get often 4 or 5 seconds evolution. Now, that change in grip level changes the balance of the car. It changes even the ride of the car from the driver's perspective, how easy it is to take curves, to land, to regain control. And you're constantly adjusting the setup to track that. Now, the difficult bit on a street circuit like that is you don't really know how far it is going to evolve, and whilst we get some general directions on what we need to do with the car in terms of stiffnesses of springs and roll bars and what we might want to be doing with the aerodynamic configuration, it's not really an exact science. So you're trying to anticipate how much grip will we have come qualifying and what will be the best setup.
Now, another thing that we were noticing was tire temperature. What is the struggle that you're having generating the temperature in these tires?
Well, in Baku, it wasn't so much a case of struggling to generate the temperature. It was more a case of having too much of it. And in particular, the rears were running hot. Now, that wasn't just our car and our drivers. You saw it up and down the field where a lot of people were feeling that as they sort of pushed hard, you were losing grip and almost driving with a level of management, sort of driving below the limit of the grip was actually the way to generate the best lap time. Now, that was the story of the race. Qualifying, it is a bit of a challenge to generate temperature, but particularly on the front tyres. And again, that's quite normal with a street circuit where you haven't got really fast corners. Really fast corners at tracks like Silverstone are brilliant for putting temperature in the fronts, but when it's all tight and twisty, it's the rears that normally suffer. So it was the normal thing of just trying to work with the drivers, how you approach the outlap, what you do with the setup. And certainly in the race, we were in a lot better shape in the second stint than in the first stint.
Now, Formula One's always evolving. We're always bringing updates. It's one of the most incredible parts about the sport is the engineering and the aero side. Now, Todos did say in a post-race interview that Lewis and the team had decided to run a little experiment on his car during this race that the team deemed successful. Can you give us a little bit more information about what that was?
Well, I mean, the background is that once you're out of parc fermé, you can make any changes that you want to the specification of the car. Now, following qualifying, Lewis had struggled with the car. George was finding his setup and his balance to be much better suited to the track at that time. So Lewis was able to get together with his engineers, with Bono, to look at what they might do with the setup to try and evolve it better for the circuit, to try and help the car turn more easily. So those changes were then built onto the car for the race. It wasn't so much that we were putting new or experimental parts, it was more just the opportunity between qualifying and race that you don't normally get to make a significant setup change, and then he was able to see how that performed in the long run on Sunday.
Well, actually, speaking on what changes you can make, the power unit obviously changed for Lewis this weekend. We knew a power unit was going to come, a new one was going to come in for Lewis at some point in this second half of the season. But talk us through a little bit about the decision about putting it in after qualifying, knowing that it would be a pit lane start.
Well, the situation with Lewis really starts back in Melbourne when we lost a very young power unit with a failure. So we've been aware for a long time that we were going to have to try and get another power unit into the pool in order to be able to complete the season without risk of one failing during a race, which you definitely don't want that to happen. So the question was, where do we do it? Now, you wouldn't normally have taken a pit lane start from a P7 grid position because there'd be decent opportunity to score points. But one of the factors for us is we've sort of drifted back a bit in terms of our performance recently, but in the near future we've got a good update kit coming. We're hoping that will put us back into a better situation, and what we'd wanted to do was really get the pain of that pit lane start out of the way before we've got a car that hopefully can get back to challenging for podiums on merit. So that was the real thinking. Now that's now behind us, so we are looking forward to the rest of the season, and certainly in Lewis's case, he should have good, reliable, powerful Mercedes engine for the remaining races.
Oh, absolutely, and it's great to hear. It's that give and take, and isn't it, doing the little sacrifice now for the better of the future. But you did just mention there's an upgrade coming. Can you give us a little bit more information about that and when we might expect to see it?
Well, as you know, the spec of the car is always evolving. We're always trying to bring performance to every race. But then at the moment, our main focus is on bringing a bigger package to Austin. Then we get into the final 6 races of the year, and there will be smaller things beyond that. But that's certainly what we're working for at the moment is a bigger update to the car at the Austin race.
Oh, great. Really something to look forward to. Can't wait to see it. Yeah. Final question, back to tires. We love talking about tires. So the 5 of the 10 of the bottom 10 started on mediums, but Norris started on hards. So can you just talk us a little bit through the decision to put Lewis on the mediums instead of the hards?
Well, there are a few considerations to why we wanted to start on the medium. Probably the biggest one, though, is what happens if there's a safety car. And looking at Lewis's race, and we run millions of simulations overnight, looking at the different permutations. What concerned us with starting on the hard tyre is that if there's a safety car early on in the race, you can't take it because your medium won't get you to the finish. If it's in the middle of the race, you can't take it because the medium won't get you to the finish. So there were a number of areas where it would be quite problematic to your strategy if that safety car fell. And in Baku, one of the areas where you do tend to get them is around that first stop. So in the region, lap 10 to lap 15, historically, that's often where those safety cars appear. So yes, we saw that Lando started on the hard. That wasn't a big surprise because he was in a different situation to Lewis, starting on the grid, surrounded by cars that should be slower, that for him he'd be thinking they're box out of the way. But for us it was really that safety car opportunity. And if you start on the medium, with Lewis being at the back, there'd be nothing to lose if he came in, even on that one with a safety car, fitted hard, and that tyre would go all the way to the finish.